For changing the locks after my parents tried to give my house to my sister? The first thing I do every Sunday is refill the little tin of coffee pots beside my sink. It is a small routine, but it gives me a few quiet minutes before I look at my phone and decide which family message deserves an answer. I'm Jennifer, 42, the younger daughter in a family that calls me dependable when they need something and difficult when I ask basic questions. My older sister, Sabrina, is 45. For most of our lives, her emergencies have been treated like family projects, and I have somehow always been assigned the bill. The house at the center of this story was mine in every sense that mattered. I bought it with my own money. The deed was in my name. The property taxes came out of my account. The insurance renewal listed me as the policyholder. When the water heater failed, I paid for the replacement. When the garage spring snapped, I handled the repair. When a section of the roof started leaking after a storm, I hired someone, compared estimates, and paid the invoice. It was not inherited. It was not a gift from my parents. It was not a shared family property. It was mine. I did not live there full-time anymore, but I kept it maintained and used it when I needed space. I had considered renting it out more than once, but my mother, Marjorie, always found a reason to discourage me. "What if someone in the family needs it?" she would say. That sounded reasonable the first few times. Families do have emergencies. I also made the mistake of thinking that keeping the house available would make everyone appreciate what I was doing. Instead, it became proof to them that the property was sitting there unused. Years earlier, I had given my parents a spare key for emergencies. The original reason was practical. I was away for a few days and a pipe had been acting up. My father, Alan, offered to check on it. The key never came back. Over time, my mother started calling the place the little family house. Sabrina shortened that to the family house, as if repetition could change ownership. She had never paid a tax bill on it. She had never scheduled a repair. She had never even replaced the paper towels after using the place for a weekend. Still, if I corrected her, my mother would sigh. "Don't be so territorial, honey." That was the pattern with my family. Sabrina could borrow my car, return it with the gas light on, and forget to reimburse me for weeks. If I mentioned it, I was counting pennies. She could ask me to cover a deposit because her account was temporarily tied up, then spend money on something else before paying me back. If I asked when I would get the money, I was making her feel ashamed. My father always sounded calmer than my mother, but he supported the same result. "You can absorb it better," he would say. Or, "Your sister has more on her plate." What he meant was that I planned ahead, so I should be punished for being prepared. I tolerated it longer than I should have. Part of me believed that if I helped enough, they would eventually stop treating my boundaries like personal attacks. By the time of my parents' anniversary dinner, I was already tired of being the responsible wallet with a pulse. The dinner was at their house. My mother had pushed the dining table against one wall and set up folding chairs in the living room. There were paper plates stacked beside the dessert table, a half-melted ice bucket near the drinks, and framed photos from my parents' wedding arranged around a white sheet cake. It was the kind of family event where everyone talked a little too loudly and pretended not to notice old tension. I arrived with a card and a bottle of wine. Sabrina was already there with her husband, Derek, and their 2 children. Derek was carrying a tray into the kitchen. Sabrina was standing near the fireplace, telling our Aunt Claire about paint colors. I did not understand what she was talking about at first. "I'm thinking something warmer," Sabrina said. "The gray makes the living room feel smaller." Claire glanced at me and smiled. "You two already planning renovations?" Sabrina laughed. "Nothing major. Just making it feel like home." I thought she meant her own home. That assumption lasted until after dinner. My father stood with a glass in his hand while my mother sat beside him, smiling in the soft, emotional way she used when she wanted everyone to see her as the center of a loving family. Alan thanked everyone for coming. He talked about 44 years of marriage, grandchildren, and how proud he was that the family always pulled together. Then he looked at Sabrina. "And we're especially grateful that Sabrina and Derek will finally have a stable place to breathe while they get back on their feet." Several people nodded. My mother reached over and placed her hand on my arm. "And we are so proud of Jennifer," she said. She remembered what family means. For a second, I thought I had missed part of the conversation. Claire turned toward me. That's incredibly generous. Not everyone would open a house to an entire family. Across the room, Sabrina smiled like someone receiving an award. The garage will help so much, she said. Derek can put the larger furniture there until we decide what stays. Derek lifted his glass slightly. The truck is reserved for the 26th, so at least that part is handled. My mother's fingers tightened around my arm. I looked at Sabrina, then Derek, then my parents. Who told you I agreed to that? The room went quiet so quickly that I could hear one of the kids tapping a plastic fork against a plate. My mother gave a short laugh. Don't start, Jennifer. This is what families do. I asked who told them I agreed. Alan lowered his glass. This is not the time. Sabrina's smile disappeared. Mom said you knew. I knew what? That we need the house for a while. Need it under what arrangement? My mother released my arm. Please don't embarrass us on our anniversary. That sentence told me more than a direct answer would have. She did not say there had been a misunderstanding. She did not ask what I thought I had agreed to. She immediately tried to make my refusal the embarrassing part. Sabrina crossed her arms. It was supposed to be temporary. How temporary? We don't know yet. Until things settle. Derek stepped in with the mild, reasonable tone he used whenever Sabrina was getting emotional. I thought this had already been discussed. Not with me. My father rubbed the side of his glass with his thumb. Nobody is trying to take anything from you. You're announcing that 4 people are moving into my house. You're not using it the way a family would, my mother said. You don't have children. You don't understand the pressure they're under. There it was. My house mattered less because I did not have children. My expenses counted less. My plans counted less. Sabrina's family automatically created a stronger claim to something I owned. Claire looked uncomfortable. A few relatives stared at their plates. I could have argued. I could have listed every bill I had paid and every time Sabrina had promised that something would be temporary. I could have raised my voice and given my mother the public scene she was already accusing me of creating. Instead, I watched Derek. He did not look surprised by my refusal. He looked prepared for it. That was what stopped me from reacting. He already knew I had not agreed. All 4 of them did. I stood up, carried my plate to the kitchen, and rinsed it. My mother followed me. Jennifer, please, she whispered. Your sister needs a soft place to land. Did you tell her I said yes? I told her you would do the right thing. That's not an answer. Why do you always make everything so harsh? I dried my hands on a dish towel. Tell Sabrina not to enter the house. My mother's face hardened. You're upset. We'll talk tomorrow. No. Tell her not to enter. She stepped closer and lowered her voice. Think about how this looks. I looked past her toward the living room, where my father was speaking quietly to Sabrina. I left before cake. The next morning I woke to 11 messages. My mother sent the first one at 7:12. Please don't let one awkward moment ruin Dad's anniversary. Family comes first. Send Sabrina whatever papers she needs so this can move forward smoothly. At 7:18, Sabrina sent a screenshot of a moving truck reservation. We already paid the deposit. I hope you're not seriously going to make us lose it over a misunderstanding. At 7:26, she sent another message. Also, I want to repaint the living room before the furniture goes in. Do you remember the paint brand you used? At 7:41, Derek texted. Morning. Is the mailbox key on the same ring as the back door key? Just trying to get ahead of logistics. I stared at that message longer than the others. The mailbox. Not can we talk. Not did your mother misunderstand you? He was asking how to receive mail at my address. I made coffee, filled the little tin beside the sink, and did not answer until I had read every message twice. Then I sent 4 questions. To Sabrina, what exactly did Mom and Dad tell you I agreed to? To Derek, what date are you planning to enter the house? To both of them, are you asking for a lease or free occupancy? And finally, who told you that you could use my mailing address? The replies came quickly. Sabrina said, Mom told us you were letting us stay until we were stable. She said you wouldn't charge us because we're family. Derek said, we plan to move in on the 26th. I assumed the address issue was part of the arrangement. I asked, did anyone tell you I signed or approved anything? There was a 12-minute pause. Then Derek replied, I was under the impression verbal approval had been given through your parents. That sentence was so carefully written that it almost made me laugh. My parents had no authority to give verbal approval for my property. Derek knew that. He was building distance between himself and the lie. Sabrina responded less carefully. Why are you making me beg? Mom said you'd complain at first but calm down. I printed the messages at a copy shop that afternoon. Not because I wanted a dramatic stack of paper, but because I wanted timestamps in front of me while I thought. I also pulled up the most recent property tax payment, the insurance renewal, and the receipt for the garage repair. Looking at those documents steadied me. They were boring, ordinary proof of reality. I owned the house. No family vote could change that. The next escalation came the following morning. I was rinsing a coffee mug when my phone rang from an unfamiliar number. The caller identified herself as an agent from the utility company associated with the house. She asked me to verify a requested account change. What change? I asked. A transfer of service responsibility beginning on the 26th. To whom? She read Derek's name. My grip tightened around the mug. No, I did not authorize any changes to that account. She asked a few security questions, removed the request, and added a note that no transfer or account change could be made without additional verification from me. I wrote down the confirmation number. When I asked how the request had been made, she said someone had provided the property address, the planned start date, and enough basic information to begin the process, but the transfer required owner confirmation because the existing account was still active. After the call, I checked the mail at the house. Among the flyers and bills was a change of address confirmation connected to Sabrina and Derek. They had already started redirecting mail to my property. I stood in the kitchen holding that envelope and felt the last bit of uncertainty disappear. They were not asking to move in. They were creating evidence that they already had. I photographed the confirmation, put it with the printed messages, and called my mother. She answered with a weary sigh, as if I had been exhausting her for days. Did you tell Derek to transfer utilities into his name? I asked. He is trying to make things easier for you. He submitted a transfer without my permission. That can be undone. Did you know they changed their mailing address? They need somewhere dependable to receive things. They do not live there. Not yet. The confidence in those two words made my stomach turn. Mom, this is my property. I know that. No, you know my name is on the paperwork. You still think the family gets to decide how it is used. She went quiet. Then she said, your father and I are only trying to keep Sabrina from losing everything. That was the story they had told everyone. Sabrina and Derek were on the edge of losing their home. Their children needed stability. I had an empty house and no children. Therefore, refusal would be selfish. I might have believed the situation was that bad if Sabrina had ever told me directly what was happening. Instead, she discussed paint and storage. That afternoon, I received an email from Sabrina that was clearly not meant for me. The subject line was rental timeline. The message began, Derek, the management company says they can list our place by the 1st if we sign this week. Below that, Sabrina had written that if they could get tenants quickly, they could keep the rental income coming in for at least 6 months while we stay at Jen's without adding another monthly payment. There was an older message farther down the chain from Derek. We should not sign a lease with Jen. If we do, she may expect rent and a deposit. Your mom said she can keep the pressure on. Then I saw my father's reply. Do not mention that part to Jennifer until she calms down. Once everyone is moved, she will not make the children leave. I read that line 3 times. My father, the calm one, the reasonable one, the man who would later say he had only been trying to avoid conflict. He had known the entire plan. Sabrina and Derek were not about to be homeless. They wanted to rent out their own place, collect income, move into mine for free, avoid signing a lease, and leave me responsible for taxes, insurance, maintenance, and anything that broke. My parents knew and had turned it into a story about desperation because desperation made me look cruel. I forwarded the email chain to a separate account, saved it as a PDF, and printed it. Then I stopped calling family members. I called an attorney. The consultation was brief and practical. I explained that no one lived at the property, no one had a lease, and no one had written permission. I also explained that my parents still had an old spare key, and that my sister's family had attempted to transfer utilities and used the address. The attorney did not give me a dramatic speech. He asked clear questions. Has anyone moved belongings in? No. Has anyone stayed there recently with your permission? No. Have you accepted money from them? No. Have you written anything that could reasonably be read as permission to occupy? No. He advised me to document everything, revoke any informal access in writing, secure the property before anyone entered, and notify the relevant companies that no changes were authorized. He also recommended a certified letter stating that Sabrina, Derek, my parents, and anyone acting for them had no permission to enter, occupy, store property, receive mail, use the address, or represent that they had any interest in the house. I don't want drama, I told him. I want them unable to pretend they have permission. Then keep your communication factual, he said. Do not argue about fairness. State ownership, consent, and access. That advice fit the situation perfectly. The next morning I hired a locksmith. I met him at the house and watched the old locks come out. The spare key my mother had kept for years became useless in less than an hour. I had the mailbox lock changed as well. The locksmith handed me the receipt and 3 new keys. I felt lighter holding them. A spare key was not ownership. But in my family, physical access had slowly become emotional permission. Changing the locks ended that illusion. I updated the utility account passwords and added a verbal security code. I contacted the Postal Service about the unauthorized address use and followed the process to dispute it. I removed the old emergency contact notes that included my parents. Then I sent a short message to all 4 of them. No one has permission to enter, occupy, store property at, receive mail at, or make account changes connected to my house. Any prior statement made by mom or dad was made without my authorization. Do not enter the property or arrange deliveries there. My mother called immediately. I let it ring. My father sent one message. Let's not make this a legal issue. I replied, you began changing utilities and address records without my permission. It is already a legal and property issue. He did not answer. There was one more decision to make. Several months earlier, I had met a prospective tenant named Rachel through a legitimate property manager. She had passed the screening process, had reliable references, and wanted a stable lease. At the time I hesitated. My mother had just told me Sabrina was going through another rough patch, and I felt guilty making the house unavailable. That guilt had cost me money and peace for years. I called the property manager and asked whether Rachel was still looking. She was. We reviewed the terms. I looked over the lease, the deposit requirements, maintenance responsibilities, and move-in checklist. Everything was written. Everything was clear. No vague promises. No pressure through relatives. No assumption that I would carry every cost because I was the dependable one. The lease start date was the 24th, 2 days before Sabrina's moving reservation. Rachel signed. I signed. The deposit cleared. For the first time in years, the house was being treated like real property instead of a family bargaining chip. I gave Rachel the keys and walked through the house with her. We noted a small scratch near the hallway closet, checked the smoke detectors, tested the garage door, and confirmed the utility transition through the proper channels. She was calm, organized, and grateful. I really appreciate how clear everything is, she said. I almost laughed at how simple that sentence sounded. Clarity should not have felt revolutionary. The attorney's certified letters went out the same day. I kept the delivery confirmations. I placed a copy of the notice in a clear weatherproof sleeve near the front door, not as a performance, but because I knew my family would arrive anyway. They had spent my entire life assuming my no was only the beginning of a negotiation. For the next 2 days they kept sending messages as if nothing had changed. Sabrina texted a photo of paint samples. Derek asked whether the garage opener would be left inside. My mother emailed several relatives with the subject line family support, and wrote that she hoped everyone would continue encouraging Jennifer to do the loving thing. I did not tell them about the tenant. Part of me struggled with that choice. I knew Sabrina had told the children they were moving. I knew 2 moving trucks had been reserved. I knew the scene would be humiliating. But I had already told them in writing that they did not have permission to enter or move belongings onto the property. They were not confused. They were betting that showing up with trucks, children, and my parents would make me surrender. If I warned them about the lease, they would redirect their pressure toward Rachel, the property manager, or anyone else they thought they could manipulate. They might arrive early. They might try to use the old key before the lease began. They might claim another delay was approval. So I did what they had refused to do. I relied on the written record. On the morning of the 26th, I was at home with my phone on the counter when the security camera notification appeared. Motion detected. The first image showed a moving truck turning into the driveway. The second showed another truck behind it. A minute later, Sabrina's car pulled up. My parents arrived after that. Rachel was already at the house. She had scheduled the morning to receive a few pieces of furniture and finish unpacking. The camera showed Derek getting out of the truck with a printed checklist. Sabrina opened the back door of the car and spoke to the children. My mother walked directly to the front door with the confidence of someone who still believed her key would settle the argument. She tried it once. Then again. She looked down at the key, turned it around and tried a third time. Derek noticed the missing lockbox first. Sabrina noticed Rachel through the front window. The camera did not capture the audio clearly, but I could see the moment all 4 adults realized someone else was inside. My phone started ringing. Mom. Then Sabrina. Then Dad. Then Derek. I did not answer. Rachel called next and I picked up immediately. There are people here saying they're your family, she said. Her voice was controlled, but I could hear tension behind it. They do not have permission to enter, I said. The notice by the door explains that. Do not open the door. The property manager is on the way, and you can call the police if they refuse to leave or try to enter. I understand. I'm sorry they put you in this position. A few minutes later, the property manager arrived. He spoke to them from the walkway. My mother pointed toward the door. Sabrina was crying. Derek kept holding up his checklist as if paperwork for a truck somehow outweighed a signed lease. My father stood to the side, looking offended by the existence of consequences. Then the voicemail started. Sabrina left the first one. I already told the kids we were moving. Do you understand what you've done? They feel unwanted. You could have said something before we packed our entire life. I had said something, repeatedly. She had decided my refusal did not count. My father left a shorter message. You are turning this into a legal mess. Call me now. My mother left 3. In the first she cried. In the second, she accused me of humiliating the family. In the third, her voice was cold. You could have handled this privately. Derek sent a text. Can we at least put the boxes in the garage for tonight? The truck is already paid for. I replied to him only. No. The garage is included in the tenant's lease. Do not unload anything on the property. By 10:30 I had 54 missed calls. By noon I had 86. The truck stayed for nearly 2 hours while Sabrina and Derek argued with the moving company about storage and cancellation fees. Eventually both trucks left. Sabrina's car followed. My parents remained in the driveway for another 10 minutes before the property manager told them again that they needed to go. Only after the camera showed the driveway empty did I answer my mother's call. She did not say hello. How could you do this to your sister? You planned a move-in without my yes, I said. I planned a lease with my signature. You let them pack. You let them hire movers. I told them in writing that they did not have permission. You knew they didn't believe you. That is not my responsibility. Her voice rose. The children were standing there watching strangers live in the house you could have given them. The house was never theirs. You're being cruel. No, I'm being clear. My father came onto the line. Jennifer, nobody said the house was theirs. You announced their move at dinner. You changed utilities. They changed their mailing address. Sabrina planned renovations. Derek tried to avoid a lease. That was all moving too quickly, he said. Mistakes were made. By all of you. You could have stopped this before today. I did. You ignored me. He exhaled sharply. Think about how this looks. It looks like 4 adults arrived at property they never had permission to use. My mother took the phone back. You embarrassed us in front of everyone. No. You humiliated yourselves when you arrived with moving trucks at a house you did not control. She started crying again. I was trying to keep this family together. You were trying to keep Sabrina comfortable with my money. That is not fair. I have the email about renting out their house. Silence. Not confusion. Not disbelief. Silence. I continued. I have Dad's message telling them not to mention the rental income until after they moved in. My father said something in the background that I could not make out. My mother recovered first. You went through private family emails? Sabrina sent it to me. By mistake. The plan was still real. It was only an idea. They had a management company ready to list their place. Jennifer, listen to me. No. You listen. You told relatives Sabrina was about to lose her home. She was planning to earn income from it. They needed breathing room. At my expense. We thought once they were settled, you would see that it worked. There it was. The plan had always depended on getting inside first. Once the children's beds were set up, once mail arrived, once furniture filled the rooms, my family believed guilt would prevent me from removing them. My father came back onto the line. Let's calm down and discuss what happens next. What happens next is that they reverse the address change, cancel any remaining utility requests, and stay away from the property. Your sister has nowhere to put her things. That is not true. She has her own house. They were preparing to rent it. Then they can stop preparing. My mother made a broken sound. You've destroyed this family. No, I said. I stopped letting you use me as the foundation for everyone else's bad decisions. Then I ended the call. The moving day was not the end of it. My mother immediately began calling relatives. Her version was that I had promised Sabrina housing, changed my mind without warning, and thrown a family with children into the street. By that evening, I had messages from 2 cousins and 1 uncle asking why I had gone so far. I did not call them individually. I did not defend myself emotionally. I sent 1 email. The subject line was clarification regarding my property. The opening read, since several relatives have been told I agreed to let Sabrina and Derek occupy my house, I am clarifying the timeline once so no one continues repeating inaccurate information. Then I listed the facts with dates. I had never agreed to free occupancy. My parents announced consent at their anniversary dinner despite knowing I had not given it. Sabrina and Derek scheduled movers before speaking to me. Derek attempted to transfer utilities without authorization. Sabrina and Derek submitted a change of address using my property. They planned to rent out their own home for income while living in mine without rent or a lease. My father knew and advised them not to tell me until after the move. I gave written notice that no one had permission to enter, occupy, store belongings, receive mail, or use the address. A lawful lease with a screened tenant was signed before Sabrina's planned move-in date. No one was evicted. No one in the family ever had tenancy or permission to move in. I attached the relevant screenshots, the utility confirmation number, the address change notice, the email chain, the certified letter, and the signed lease page showing the start date. I removed any private information unrelated to the dispute. I ended the email with 1 sentence. I will not discuss opinions about whether I should have surrendered my property, but I will correct false claims about what occurred. The responses were quiet at first. Then Claire called. I almost did not answer because I was exhausted, but she had been one of the relatives who praised me at the dinner, and I wanted to hear what she had to say. I thought you agreed, she said. That's what your mom told me. I know. Did they really know Sabrina wasn't losing her place? Yes. And they were going to rent it out? That was the plan. Claire was silent for a moment. I'm sorry. I should have asked you before judging. Thank you. This wasn't help, she said. This was pressure. Hearing someone else say it did not fix anything, but it mattered. Claire told me my mother had called her earlier and described the situation as an emergency. She had left out the rental plan, the unauthorized address change, and the utility transfer. After reading the timeline, Claire called my mother back and told her she would not repeat the story that I had evicted anyone. That was when my mother's control over the family narrative began to crack. Not everyone apologized. A few relatives said I was legally right but morally cold. One cousin said I could have rented the house to Sabrina at a discount. I reminded him that Sabrina and Derek had specifically tried to avoid a lease, rent, and a deposit. He did not respond. Derek had to spend the next week undoing what he had started. He reversed the address change, confirmed in writing that he would not use the property address, and canceled the utility request. He and Sabrina paid the moving company for the trucks, then paid for storage because they had packed more than they could immediately move back into their own house. Their plan to list their home was delayed. The management company apparently had already scheduled photos and prepared paperwork, so Sabrina and Derek lost money there too. None of those costs were my doing. They were the price of planning around property they did not own. Sabrina sent me one long message 3 days later. She said I had punished her for needing help. She said I had always resented that our parents supported her. She said the house was sitting empty and I had chosen a stranger over my own nieces and nephews. I replied with 4 sentences. You did not ask for help honestly. You planned to collect rent from your own house while living in mine for free. You changed your address and attempted to transfer utilities before I gave permission. I will not discuss this further. She responded. Why do you always make me beg? I did not answer. She had never begged. She had announced, scheduled, redirected, and arrived. My father tried a different approach. He called himself neutral. I did not approve every detail, he said during one phone call. I was trying to keep everyone calm. You told them not to mention the rental income. I was trying to prevent an argument before there was a final plan. The movers were booked. Your mother gets carried away. You replied to the email. He paused. Then he said, You have always been more independent than Sabrina. For years that sentence had been used as praise. Now I heard the full meaning. You need less so we can take more. I am independent, I said. That does not make my property available. He asked whether we could put the whole thing behind us. I told him not yet. My mother was the last one to speak to me directly. She waited nearly 2 weeks, then called on a Sunday morning. I had just refilled the coffee pots and was sitting at the kitchen counter. Her voice was softer than it had been on moving day. I miss my daughter. I'm still your daughter. It doesn't feel like it. What does being your daughter require? Don't talk like that. I'm asking. She sighed. We have always helped each other. No, I have helped, and you have decided when it was enough. Your sister needed you. She wanted free housing so she could make money from her own property. Everything is about money with you. No, money is just the part you can measure. Permission is the bigger issue. She started to cry. I made one mistake. You announced my consent in front of the family. You told Sabrina I would calm down. You let them change their address. You knew about the rental plan. Then you told people I threw them into the street. I was upset. You were protecting the story you created. I wanted everyone together. You wanted me useful. She went quiet. I did not enjoy saying it. There was no rush of victory. It hurt because it was true, and because some part of me had spent decades hoping it was not. Finally, she said, What do you want from us? Respect the rules I set. I told her no one in the family would ever have a spare key again. No one could use my property, address, name or accounts without written permission. Any request involving money had to be made in writing. I would not cover Sabrina's deposits, emergency expenses, moving costs, storage costs, or legal fees. If anyone told relatives a false version of events, I would answer with the full timeline. My mother said that sounded cold. It sounds clear. Families shouldn't need rules like contracts. Families that ignore consent do. She ended the call soon after. Nothing magically healed. My mother is still angry that I made the facts public. My father still talks as if he was standing in the middle, even though his own email shows otherwise. Sabrina still believes the worst thing that happened was that her children saw the moving trucks turn around. Derek has remained polite, which is his way of pretending that calm language erases deliberate choices. Claire and I speak more often now. She does not bring up reconciliation. She simply treats me like someone whose version should have been heard before judgment. Rachel has been a good tenant. She pays on time, reports maintenance issues early, and treats the house with more care than some relatives ever did. The rent covers expenses and leaves room for future repairs. More importantly, the property is no longer sitting in the background of family conversations as an unclaimed resource. It is leased. It is protected. It is mine. For a while, I felt guilty about the moving day. I pictured the children in the back seat and wondered whether I should have done more to prevent the scene. Then I remembered every warning I gave. I remembered the certified letter. I remembered the utility transfer, the address change, the moving reservation, and my father's message about waiting until everyone was inside. They did not walk into a trap I created. They walked straight through every boundary I put in front of them because they believed I would be too ashamed to enforce one. They wanted me to be the family safety net. I finally cut the rope. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.